thank you all for braving the weather tonight. Of course, this seems like it's an everyday occurrence anymore. Hasn't this been the weirdest weather this year? First we had all that snow, and now we've got all this rain. I'm ready for summer to start. I noticed the other day, that, well, you know, it's the middle of July, and he's sitting back there with a jacket on. You've got a jacket on, and I had one on earlier today. I don't know if you all are here for Time with Herbs, or if you're here for grilling and chilling, because it was in the paper as grilling and chilling, but this is a program on herbs tonight. So whichever one you came for, we're going to talk about herbs. We can talk about grilling too if you want to. My name is Sarah Brandel, and I am the Family and Consumer Science Extension Specialist here at the Robinson Center, and I work with a federal nutrition education program called the SNAP-Ed and FNET program. I'm not an expert on herbs. I'm just somebody that likes to eat, and I do use herbs quite a bit in my cooking, and I do have a little herb garden out behind my house. So, you know, using herbs in food is growing in popularity. You can't open a magazine in the summertime without just about every recipe in it having something to do with herbs. At least I noticed that last week. I was thumbing through a couple of old summer magazines and noticed that just about every single recipe had herbs in it. Some people eat to live. I'm one of those people that live to eat. I don't know about you all, but I enjoy cooking. I enjoy trying new recipes. I enjoy tweaking recipes. I don't hardly ever, unless like for tonight, a program like this, hardly ever do a recipe the way that it says to do it. I usually add a little something different. And we all have our own favorite recipes, don't we? That that are our go-to. And then we have some recipes that we only make once or twice a year. Like I know, we don't do turkey and dressing anytime in my family except at Thanksgiving. So we do have a lot of different recipes that we use. Herbs in general are any plants, that's the definition, that is used for food, flavoring, medicine, or perfume. I really didn't think about that until I started doing a little research for this lesson on, how much, plants are, how much our lives revolve around plants. What's the difference between an herb and a spice? Does anybody know? The difference between an herb and a spice? An herb is the leafy part of the plant, and a spice can be a product from some other part of the plant, whether it be the berries, the seeds, the root even. A spice could be roots, fruits, even bark, the bark of a plant. What about some spices that we like to use real often? Let's name some. Cinnamon. Cinnamon's one of my favorites. And where do y'all think that comes from? Bark. That comes from the bark of a tree. Or a shrub. Is it a shrub?
It's a tree.
It's a tree, okay. What about some other spices? Can you think of any others? Rosemary. Rosemary would be an herb. It's a leaf.
Pepper?
Spice, pepper, exactly. And pepper is the seed of the plant. What about ginger? Everybody use ginger? Make gingerbread? Ginger comes from the root of the plant. And then we have things like nutmeg. Nutmeg is a fruit. And then vanilla would be the bean, would be a vanilla bean. And then cloves are seeds. So we use all different kinds of plants. And we use different plants in different forms in many different ways. And some plants that we use in cooking can be both a spice and an herb. Dill, for instance, is an example of that, because we use the dill leaves in cooking, but we use the seeds in what do we use seeds for? Something we make with cucumbers. Pickles, right. We use the dill weed and the seeds when we do pickles. Herbs have been used throughout the ages for medicine, flavoring and seasoning, and for food preservation. Hippocrates listed over 400 different plants in his writing about medicine. And today we still use over 200 of these plants to make medicine today. I thought that was kind of interesting. So what about some herbs? Somebody mentioned rosemary back here. What are some other herbs that we use when we cook? Oregano, basil, sage, thyme, Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Who was that wrote that song? Simon and Garfunkel, yes. Parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Parsley, thyme, and we do have some spices or herbs that we can buy in the grocery store that are blends of some different spices, like Italian herb seasoning. That's a blend of different Italian herbs, like oregano, basil, parsley, thyme. And we can make our own if we decide to plant some. Do any of you all have herb gardens right now? You will when you leave here tonight. Sean is going to give you all a lot of different herbs to take home. And if you've ever tasted food that's been cooked with fresh herbs, the difference in dried and fresh is just incredible. How different how much more it brings out the flavor. Herbs are not meant to mask the flavor of food. They're meant to be added in small quantities so that it enhances the flavor of the foods that we eat. You can buy some fresh herbs in the grocery store today. You can get cilantro, you can get parsley, some oregano, some basil, but a lot of times those herbs are really expensive. And I don't know about you all, but I love cilantro, but I don't, or cilantro, however y'all say it, but I don't really use a lot of it. When you cook, you know, it's such a robust, aromatic, flavorful herb, you don't really need a whole lot of it in the foods that you use. So to buy a big bunch of it at the grocery store, I know that I'm either going to dry it or the rest of it's going to be thrown away. So that's what I do try to do when I do buy herbs like that, because you can't, you know, really grow everything, you know, and have it when you need it. Mint, cilantro, you know, they cost a lot of money, so we can grow these ourselves. Make sure if you're buying herbs though that you're selecting herbs that are fresh. You know, they have their color, they're not wilted. I was showing Sean this parsley that I bought Saturday at Kroger in Stanton. And when I first bought it, it was gorgeous. It was really, really nice. But I didn't store it right. I took it home, stuck it at the bottom of my refrigerator. I should have put it in a little bit of water. So you can see that it does look several days old now. Not that there's anything wrong with it, it just doesn't have that really pretty look to it that it had when I bought it. We want to make sure that if we're purchasing herbs, that we buy herbs that have, you know, that are clean, especially if you're like buying them at a farmer's market or someplace like that. You know, they don't have a lot of blemishes on them, a lot of dried herbs, a lot of dried, you know, old-looking leaves. And I've got a few of those up here with some of the plants that I brought. Herbs can be perennials, meaning that they come back each year. Thyme is an example of that. I have, you know, a lot of flowers in my flower bed. I'm right now to the point though that I don't plant many things that don't come back every year. I don't have time to do that. Plus they cost a lot of money. And then there's annuals like basil that you do need to plant every year. And Sean's going to talk about planting and taking care of plants a little bit when I get finished up here today. Basil is one of my favorites because it's so easy to grow. I grew that from seed, you know, years ago and started basil plants, so it's really easy to grow. And some herbs you can even bring in the wintertime, especially if you keep them in pots. You can have them all winter long. And Sean's going to talk a little bit more about that too, so I won't talk much about that. But if you do plant an herb garden beside your house or in your garden, make sure that you plant it really close to your kitchen. I don't know how many times I'm standing there mixing up something and it calls for oregano. Well, I've got oregano right here, you know, or I can go outside, go around the corner and snip some fresh. So you want to make sure that, you know, you don't have to, that it's not an inconvenience for you to have to run somewhere, you know, like way down the hill or whatever to get you, you know, to get your herbs, because you want them, you know, while you're cooking. You want them to be fresh. I was telling Sean earlier today, times like this during the summer when I don't have flowers in bloom in my yard, I always have sprigs of mint or basil or something in a little glass jar in my window. I also like to put mint in my bathroom, just because it makes everything smell really good. Just a little live plant. We need to harvest herbs by snipping off the flowers or leaves. I just use a pair of kitchen, or just dollar pair of scissors. Easiest thing, you know, just to snip whatever you need. And it's preferably to harvest your herbs on a sunny day in the morning. And that's because, Sean, why is that? Because the wells are coming to the top of the plant in the morning. so we want to harvest early in the morning. Leafy herbs, you want to harvest just before the buds open. Some herbs we harvest the seed. You want to make sure that you do that when the seeds go from green to brown, where they have to not dry. And we've got some examples of those up here dried too. And then herbs that are flowers, you want to snip those before the flowers actually begin to open. And I've got a handout on all this that I'm talking about. We will take that with you. To store herbs, you can store them in the refrigerator, just in a glass jar. And if you do that, you might want to just put a plastic bag over the top of them that's kind of open at the bottom. And these will last up to 2 weeks in the refrigerator, just in a jar. Sage and thyme, they're a little bit more hardy, so you can put them in just damp paper towels and put them in a plastic bag, and they'll keep for a long time, a couple of weeks in the refrigerator. When preserving herbs, there's 2 ways we can do that. We can dry them or freeze them. When you dry them, you want to make sure that you wash them first. You blot them dry between 2 paper towels, and you can either dry them by hanging them upside down, which is one way that I like to do it. I just tie a string around it and hang them upside down. I actually picked these this morning, so you can tell that they're real wilty and they're drying quite a bit. Sometimes I will take these and just, if I'm drying quite a bit of herbs at one time, and just hang them on like a pant hanger with a little clips on the end, or just a regular hanger. You can hang them up, or you can put them on old window screens, nice clean window screens. You can strip the leaves off, lay them out on a window screen, put them in your attic. One time I dried a whole lot of basil, and I put it in my guest room, and I tied it all up, and kind of hung it like around the edge of the closet. The only thing that I didn't do was I forgot to put something underneath them. So I had lots of carpet covered with lots of little basil leaves and stuff laying around. So that's one thing I do suggest. You can either put a brown paper sack over them that has holes punched in it, or you can just simply lay a clean sheet underneath if you're hanging them up to dry, because they will fall off. And that's a great way, at the end you can just take it, shake it, just crumble the leaves off. Once they get good and dry, it all falls onto that sheet, and you can just scoop it up and then put it in a jar. But that's how you dry it. One way I like to dry herbs is I just simply put them on a paper towel, on a paper plate. I'll take, strip them sometimes from the stem, and then I just lay that tray up on the top of my refrigerator. And in a couple of weeks, you'll have dried herbs. That's what I did with this. This is some thyme that Sean gave me, I think, last week, the week before, and I just put it on a paper towel up on top of my refrigerator, and it dried great. Because heat rises, and that's a good place to do that. We can freeze herbs. Basil is one herb that really freezes well. And one way that I do these is I just take a roll of paper towel, and I'll strip off some of the leaves. And then what I'll do with them then is just like mush them together, and then I just roll them up in a piece of wax paper, kind of like a cigar. And then you can put that in the freezer. And then when you get ready to use it, all you have to do is just roll it back, and then you can just take a pair of scissors and snip it off, however much you want to use. Another good way to freeze herbs is to use an ice tray. Now, if I'm doing herbs for like soups, if I'm going to do basil or thyme or oregano, those kinds of things for like soup, then I'll just put a little bit in an ice cube tray, pour in some water, and then freeze it. And that way when you're making soup, all you have to do is pop out an ice cube and throw it into your soup. Another thing you can do with herbs, especially if you're going to use them with olive oil, is to just simply put herbs in here and then fill it up with olive oil. All you have to do is pop it out, a tablespoon of olive oil, put it into your skillet. You've got herbs for stir fry, pasta, whatever you want to do with it. So that's a good use of an ice tray. And if you're going to freeze them for more than 2 months, you need to blanch them, which is putting the herbs down in boiling water for about 45 seconds, taking them out, make sure they're good and dry, and then dry them if you're going to keep them for more than 2 months. I never actually have really blanched anything. I do a lot of freezing with my herbs and a lot of drying. And I dry in small amounts like this. you know, I'm going to use that probably within a couple of months. So, but it does, we do recommend that you blanch it. They'll last a little bit more. Some people do, some people don't. And it's really great, you know, to dry your own herbs. And you're going to, you know, just from one plant, you're going to get probably a lot more dried herbs than you're ever going to use within a year. So a great thing to do with that is to like go to a yard sale, get baby food jars from friends that have babies, or you can go to Bed Bath & Beyond and buy some cute little jars and put your herbs in them and give them as Christmas gifts. I think people really enjoy that, you know, especially if you attach a little recipe to it or something. So, when you're cooking with herbs, you want to make sure that you wash the herbs first, because you never know what little pups may have been around the corner, or what bird flying through the air, or whatever. You know, you want to make sure that you do wash them really well. For best results, you need to chop them or mince them before you cook with them, because when you break that, when you chop it or mince it, you're going to release a lot of those oils that come out, make them so, you know, and brings out the flavor. And another thing that I bought at Walmart the other day, not Mission Products, but I don't know if y'all seen these. These were on sale back. I can get them out of here. But these are herb scissors. So you can take fresh herbs and just simply chop them without having to put them on on a cutting board and using a knife. I usually just use regular scissors before I found these handy little things. And then if they get into the grooves, you take this little thing and just clean it out. Oh, that was such a cute little trick. But those are on the back in the clearance at Walmart. A rule of thumb when cooking with herbs is when you're using fresh herbs, you want to add them at the end of the cooking. Like if you're making soups, those kinds of things. If you're using fresh, you want to add them at the end. If you're using dry, you want to add dry herbs at the beginning of cooking, because they need that moisture. Also, when using herbs, it's dried herbs. Like if a recipe calls for a tablespoon for fresh herb, you would only use a teaspoon of dried herb. It's 1/3 because they dried out. So a tablespoon of chopped fresh herbs is equal to a teaspoon of dried herbs. So I always try, you know, if I've got fresh, I want to use fresh herbs. And if you're adding to a marinade or a salad dressing, then you need to add several hours in advance for the flavors. And with a little practice, you can adjust seasonings. One way to know if you like an herb is to make an herb butter. And the handout that you all got there on culinary herbs talks about making herb butters, where you take a stick of butter, and we do recommend that you use butter and not margarine, because butter is just better. Plus, it blends a little bit better. But you can use a tablespoon of herb with a stick of butter. And one of the good things about herbs is there's no calories in herbs. They do have a little bit of, some of them do have a little bit of vitamins A and vitamin C, but they don't have a lot of calories in them. You have to eat an awful lot to get any calories in herbs. But herb butters are a really good way to serve your herbs, especially if you're having like corn on the cob. You can make a nice herb butter to put on your corn, or it's just good on fresh bread. You can use it to season meats. Combine 1 tablespoon of fresh minced herb with a half a cup of butter and allow it to stand at room temperature for a couple of hours, so that the temperature of the herb will blend with the butter. And it will keep up to a month in the refrigerator as an herb butter, or in the freezer for 3 months. This handout also talks about making herb teas. Now, we're really not going to talk about much tonight, except I do have some lemon balm up here that you could use to make a tea. But usually, dried herbs are dried, and then they're mixed with other forms of tea to make an herb tea, like black tea usually. And then there's recipes for herbs and oil. One thing that this handout does not say, though, is that when you put herbs and oil, if you're making an infusion with herbs and oil, you do need to refrigerate that. It does not say that in this handout, so make sure that if you're doing that you do put the herb mixture in the refrigerator. There's also some recipes in here for herb salts, soup bags, and then some vinegars, making herb vinegars, which are really, really good with salad recipes. And there's all kinds of recipes in here. And one of the recipes that we are going to taste tonight is a pesto that's listed here. I made some of that a while back. And that's a great way to use up your basil if you've got a little basil there. So I make the pesto with this recipe, and you can put it in the freezer. It's great on bread. It makes a good topping for pizza. Rather than using the red pizza sauce, you can use a pesto. Makes it really, really good. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about some different herbs. I'm going to talk about the herbs that you're going to take home with you tonight. One of them is basil. And we've got a little bit of that right here. Do you all use basil? Like I already said, it's really easy to grow. It's one of the most widely used herbs in the world. There are over 50 different species of basil. There's a dwarf basil. Sean may be better talking about these than I am. There's a dwarf basil, there's purple, there's Thai, there's lemon, and they're great with vegetables. Basil's really good with zucchini, really good with tomatoes, great with tomatoes and zucchini mixed together. I've even just chopped some up, put it with a little olive oil, and marinated chicken. It's really, really versatile. It's warm, it's got a warm and spicy smell. It's a little bit like cloves and licorice if y'all want to pass that around and sniff it. It's good with eggs. Yeah, it's good in salads. It's great on pizza, and it's a member of the mint family. So it has a square stem. If you've ever noticed, basil has a square stem. I think that's really odd that it has that square stem. Most common use is for pesto, which is a mixture again of olive oil, basil, garlic, Parmesan cheese, and the most precious, expensive pine nuts. Pine nuts are going for like $12 or $13 a pound. They're very, very expensive. The pine nuts that I bought to make this with, I bought out one of those things where you just get what you need, you know, the bins, and I think I paid $5 for maybe half a cup of pine nuts. But it's worth it if you like pesto. Pesto's really good. Next we have spearmint, and you are going to get to take some of this home tonight. This is an example of some mint that I've let almost go to bloom. I love that little purple bloom on it. But this is spearmint, and you all can taste of that. It's a square stem too. It dries really well. It's been cherished for its aroma and its taste, and for its medical uses. It's used to heat and invigorate the spirit. Used to heal and invigorate the spirit. It has a cool, refreshing taste. What are some things we use it for? We use it for toothpaste. Excuse me, just one second. I turn the oven down. We use it in tea. We use it in lemonade sometimes, and I've got some lemonade that we're going to try tonight that's made with spearmint. We use it in Kentucky for a very famous drink, don't we? Around Derby time, mint julep, yes. Wouldn't be a mint julep without, wouldn't be a julep without the mint. I think it's a waste of mint to make mint julep out of it too. It's true. Not a bourbon fan. And it's also used to make vinegars, mint jelly. You've probably heard of mint jelly. And it's also used to make my favorite, the peppermint patty. York peppermint patty. Garlic chives is another herb that you're going to be taking home with you tonight.
Actually, it's onion chives.
Onion chives, okay. I had garlic chives. I have two kinds of chives at home. I love chives. They're beautiful. They bloom so pretty. So onion chives we'll be taking home tonight. Chives are related to onions, only they have a little bit of a milder flavor. When I think of chives, I think of a baked potato smothered in butter and sour cream with fresh chives snipped on top of it. Chives are good in coleslaw. If you've ever made homemade coleslaw, you can put a little bit of chives in coleslaw. Great with omelets, good on eggs, good with cheese, potatoes. Really good with potatoes. That's one of my favorites. Really? Really? Wow. That's interesting. Did she have onion breath all the time? Really? That's interesting. When we used to live over here at Quicksand, and we would miss our cat once in a while, and she would be down in the herb garden down here in Catnip. And you'd look out the window, there she'd be out there, just tearing it up. Sage. Sage is a really, really good herb. When I think of sage, we all think of Thanksgiving. It's about the only time of year that I ever use sage. It reminds me of my father because every Thanksgiving we had to have that little bag of dried sage. You couldn't buy it in the box, and you had to have that dried, that little, that was the best. You had to have it. So sage is good around Thanksgiving. We put it in sausage. We wouldn't have sausage without sage. It has a strong, kind of a bitter, lemony kind of taste. They have really soft leaves. The American Indians use sage a lot for medicine. The oil has antiseptic properties. Can be used to heal minor cuts. And it dries really well. So get y'all some sage. It won't last throughout the winter. I've had it last one time. I planted it really close to my house, and it came back the next year, but usually it doesn't. Thyme. Thyme is a really good spice or herb. It has little small oval leaves. This is some dried. You all will get to take a fresh one home or a live plant home tonight. That's some that I just dried. I have a spinach casserole recipe that calls for thyme. It would be the same without it. It's a delicious recipe. Thyme is good with seafood, with beans and vegetables. It's also good with eggplant, tomatoes. Good for seasoning mushrooms, tomatoes and zucchini. There you go with zucchini. And it's great in marinades for pork and other kinds of meat, beef, and it's good with roasted vegetables. As is oregano. And you all are going to get some Greek oregano to take home tonight. And this is the Greek oregano. It's so cute. Greek? Yeah, show them what's the difference in that and just regular oregano.
This has a hotter taste to it. It has more essential oils.
Okay.
Comes from a different part of the Mediterranean.
Excellent. I think all of us, if you could, use oregano in some way. Whether we usually use it in Italian dishes. It enhances eggs, cheese, yeast breads, vegetables, mushrooms, squash, onions. Really good with that. It's just really, really good. You all like to pass around rosemary. Oh, I love it. It smells so good. Lemon balm. I mentioned lemon balm that is good with tea. It is, again, a member of the mint family. It looks a lot like mint. If you'll pass it around and smell of it, it smells like kind of like lemon pledge. It has a real lemony smell to it. Lemon balm's been known to have calming qualities. It is used to ease pain. It helps people sleep, and it helps us relax. It's good in tea. It's good with fish, and it's good in soups. Fennel. Has anybody ever grown or used fennel? Fennel's not one of my favorites because fennel is basically licorice flavor. And licorice is not one of my things. I don't care for it at all. But they have these beautiful, look at this little bloom. It looks kind of like a cattail. Little fuzzy little bloom on it. If you'll smell it, it smells just like licorice. And the root of the fennel plant is also used. Some people dig it up and roast it. It's supposed to be really good, but I've never tried it. And fennel is used in a lot of seafood sauces. I don't like it in licorice either. And the seeds are used to make breads and tea. Rosemary. We already passed around rosemary. Rosemary's been, for more than 3,000 years, rosemary has been the herb that symbolizes love and friendship and remembrance. It's a Mediterranean native. It has a hint of pine and lemon. And I love the smell of it. It's really smells good. It grows on a shrub. It's a perennial. And it again is part of the mint family. And during World War II, they burned rosemary in hospitals overseas. Thought that it helped kill germs. I don't know if that did or not, but that's what they used it for. Rosemary goes well with meats, with potatoes. You're going to taste some rosemary potatoes tonight. The dish that I made is potatoes, olive oil, and just rosemary, just a little bit of salt. We need to use a lot more herbs in our cooking today to get rid of, cut back on that salt. If we can enhance our cooking without using so much salt, we're all going to be better off. You don't need that much salt. We usually get enough salt by lunchtime every day, usually in our breakfast. We only need about a teaspoon of salt a day, and Kentuckians get about 3 times that. So we really need to cut that down. Dill, both the seed and the leaf are used, and we mostly use dill for pickles. Sean was telling me today one of his favorite things to do is to cut up cucumbers and tomatoes and put some fresh dill with vinegar and water and keep it in the refrigerator. I like to do that too. I have used dill in my water though. I usually use vinegar. But he's got some dill up here. I believe that's it. You'll want to pass that around and smell it. A couple other things. Parsley is a really very common herb. I brought some of it, but I bought it at the grocery store. I don't use parsley much, but a lot of times it's used as a garnish. A lot of cultures use it, they lay it on the plate as the last thing of the meal. You're supposed to eat it to freshen your breath, which I think is kind of interesting, and it makes a really pretty garnish. It's very versatile. It can be used in salads and soups, and there are at least 37 different varieties of parsley. Sometimes you are used to freshen your breath. It doesn't have an overpowering flavor to it, so a lot of people like to use it. A lot of us are really, we don't like a lot of change, and we like to eat our common foods a little often. So, adding a few of these little herbs every now and then to some dishes can really add a lot of flavor to our family's meals. Garlic is a member of the lily family. I didn't bring any garlic with me tonight, but the stem can be used in cooking, but we usually just use the bulb. What's the difference in a bowl of garlic and a clove of garlic? The recipe calls for a clove of garlic.
The bowl is the whole thing, the clove is the garlic.
The bowl is the whole thing, and clove is just a section. I knew somebody one time that got those mixed up. Had a very garlicky food. Some points to remember, I'll wrap up here and turn it over to Sean, is when you're adding herbs and spices to your foods, add a little bit at a time. It's much easier to add more than it is to take it out. Really, really hard to do. Experiment by adding small amounts to some of your favorite dishes. If you've got fresh herbs in the summertime, try it with everything. I like to just put basil on a frozen pizza. We can do, like I said, just pull some different herbs out and marinate them. I've even used mint in potato salad, just to add something a little bit different. Just a little bit. You don't need a whole lot. But mint's good with potatoes. It's good in yogurt. I like to take Greek yogurt and mix a little bit of mint and cucumbers and onion together with yogurt, just to serve as a little side dish with the meats that you're grilling. It's really good with chicken. Very, very good. For recipe again, calls for a tablespoon of fresh herbs, and all you have is dried. Then you use what? A teaspoon, 1/3. Add dried herbs early in the cooking and fresh at the end. The recipes that we're going to try tonight, one of them is called herb pasta with cherry tomatoes, with roasted cherry tomatoes. I made this morning. It calls for whole wheat pasta, olive oil, cherry tomatoes, and onion, garlic cloves, 4 of them, so it's pretty garlicky, a red bell pepper, 6 tablespoons of fresh basil, dried thyme, dried oregano. I used my fresh thyme this morning when I made this, and I used fresh oregano instead of dried because I had it. It calls for fresh parsley, so I also use fresh parsley. Another recipe that we're going to try tonight is lemonade with fresh mint. I didn't even taste this. I made it this morning. I haven't tasted it yet. Somebody gave me this recipe and said it was wonderful, that they had done it, so I tried it. And then in the oven right now are the rosemary potatoes, and then we're going to try some of the pesto on some bread, which I'm going to go heat up. And I'm going to turn this over to Sean and let him talk about how to grow and take care of these herbs when you've got them out.
Thanks, Sarah. I am Sean Wright. I'm the horticulture here, extension specialist. And like Sarah, I'm not an herb expert, but have grown herbs. The herbs that you're going to be taking home tonight were ones that we started back here at the greenhouse this spring. So we'll talk a little bit about that. That handout that you've got there talks a little bit about the life cycle, sun requirements, soil requirements, how to start them, whether they do best in a pot or in a garden situation, how easy they are to grow. Some are a little bit easier than others, and how often you can harvest from a specific plant and things like that. So as Sarah said, some of our herbs are annuals. One of them that's very common is basil. You can actually keep this going if you have a bright sunny window. You can keep it alive for about a full calendar year, but it won't last much longer than that. This is an interesting plant in India. It's considered a sacred plant by many of the Hindus. With their climate there, they can actually keep the plant alive for more than a single calendar year, just because the climate is very suitable for that. It is very frost sensitive. This is one that you should really, even though you can buy transplants, I would recommend purchasing just a packet of seed and sowing it. You know, one packet of seed that you can get at your retail garden center or online from your favorite seed seller will give you more than enough basil for most people. This one, as you can see, has been harvested. There's a little place there where it's been cut off. These plants have actually, we started them back in the early spring. These plants have been harvested 3 or 4 times, depending upon the plant. You can kind of look at it and see where it's growing. This one was harvested once, twice. I think there was a 3rd harvest off of this as well. This is one that you would want to start early. There are different types